In this video, I'm going to demonstrate the capabilities of the Databricks plugin extension. The plugin extension uses the Databricks public REST API to start a cluster, stop a cluster, run and monitor a job, run and monitor a job using the Run Now payload, run it and monitor a job using the Run Submit payload. So here you'll see I have an AutoSys environment set up with a series of jobs. So the first one is to start a cluster. So what will happen is that this will start a predefined demo cluster in Databricks. So here I'm specifying the parameters for the cluster, and this is the endpoint where Databricks is available at, and this is a token used to log in, and then this is the actual cluster information. And this one here is the monitor loop to monitor the cluster to make sure that the cluster has been fully started. And this is the delay between the checks on the status of the cluster. And this last one here is the level of log detail. So when I start this job, you will see the cluster starting over here in my Databricks environment. So this is the cluster that I am trying to start right now. And so what happens is when this runs, it will see the job, the cluster being starting. So here you see that the cluster is now in pending status, so it's actually being started up. Now that the cluster is started, we can check back here in AutoSys, and we'll see that the job is marked as completed as it's been started. So I'm going to release each one of these jobs one at a time so that we can see the behavior in Databricks. So I'm going to run this job first. This job here runs a notebook. The notebook that's going to be executing is defined here. So we need the notebook ID. So the notebook ID contains, it's just a numeric number, so we would need to look it up once we actually go into Databricks. So the notebook ID here is 2739. So when I jump into here, 2739 corresponds to this particular job right here. This is the job ID that I'm going to run. So this notebook is an example notebook. So what I'm going to do is I will take the job off of hold and it should start executing. Okay, so now it's executing. And if I flip over here, we will see that the notebook is now running. Oh, it actually finished running. Oh no, it's still running. Here we go. So it's currently running. So once this notebook finishes, the job in AutoSys will go to completion. And you can actually look at the progress of the job in the quick view while it's running to see what it's doing. So here I will look at quick view. So here you'll see that it submitted the job, it went to pending state, now it's in running state. If you were to go into Databricks, you would see where it's actually running by looking at this here. And we can see that it finished this particular operation and it's currently here running this operation right now. Oh, and it just finished. I generated the reports and now it's running the second select statement here, and it finished that. And it looks like it's completed. So if I switch back over here, it should be marked as complete. Yep, so it succeeded. So flipping back over here, you'll see that the job has now been marked as success. So this next job is to show what happens if there's a failure. So if we take a look at this job, This one is running, the job ID is 2799. And if we take a look at 2799, it's this one. And this one requires parameters. So this particular notebook, when it runs, it's mandatory that you pass in some parameters into this job. So it's taking in a few of these parameters here. So what I've done to make it fail is I didn't pass in the parameters. So this will fail early on in the execution. So what I'll do now is I'll kick this job off. So now it's going to try to execute. And this one should go to failure. And it did. So here's the failure. And the run ID was 33752. I could jump into quick view on this job and take a look at it. So here's the failure run. And here is the running of the job. So the run ID is 33752. And it does show it failed, and it says the task completed with an error. And so that's the failure case. So the next one here is I'm going to run the job again, but this time I'm going to pass in the proper parameters. So here are the notebook parameters that I'm passing in. So this one is also running the exact same one, 2799. So I will kick this one off. So now the job is running. Flip back over to here. Then you'll see here the job has been started. And this will, we can kind of look at it here live as it's executing. So it finished the first one. It's now running this command here. And then, once this is finished running, the job will be marked as completed and AutoSys. Okay, so the job has finished running to success. And over here, we'll see that the job went to success. These last two jobs are more advanced job types that allow you to run based off of JSON payloads. So in here, you'll see that the job definition actually has the minimal payload, but you can look at the Databricks documentation for, you can do some extra stuff in these JSON files here to manipulate the job beyond the static job definition. So this one here will just kick off the job, just like the other ones. It's not doing any modifications to the execution. So I'll release this guy. And one thing to know, these things run it's what's called an interactive cluster. So interactive clusters are not visible in the UI. You will not find it anywhere in the UI at all because these run on a special interactive cluster, which are not present or visible from the Databricks UI. So in here, we can monitor the jobs. And here you see it's currently executing and it terminated and went to success. And then this last job is something called it's again running with the interactive cluster. But it allows you to, I'm showing a little bit more complicated stuff where I'm, giving it a run name, specifying a cluster. You can do a dynamic cluster here, or you can run it in an existing cluster. I'm also specifying the notebook here where I'm specifying the notebook to run. So this will execute and it's not visible again in the Databricks UI. So now the job is running. We can go into quick view again and view the output. And here you see it's pending, and then now it's in the running state. So this will run about, I guess, 10, 15 seconds. Yep, so terminating with a success. And here you see it's marked a success. So the last thing here is the command to shut the cluster down. So you can set up your clusters to do idle shutdown, but there are some customers who are using this who found that even letting the cluster sit idle is still costing money. So this whole flow here is an example of a cost saving measure where we can start the cluster on demand, run the jobs necessary, and shut it down immediately after the last job is executed in there. So I will release this job. And what will happen is the demo cluster will shut down. So here you go, it's been terminated. So that's the capabilities of the Databricks plugin extension. Thank you.